this week's Top Gear, we look back at Austin of England's attempt to conquer America. Why don't all cars have airbags? And we examine the concept of a second-hand Range Rover. But to begin with, something that makes the Range Rover look positively weedy. Since I began on Top Gear, I've wanted to do a road test of one of these. It's Lamborghini's 140-mile-an-hour LM002. Colonel Gaddafi's got one, you know. Anyway, just when the opportunity presented itself, they went and stopped making it, so I've been forced to spend a couple of days playing around with their cars instead. It's been hell. Sheer hell. You can do something for love. You can do something for money, but there's nothing quite so satisfying as doing something out of spite. Were it not for spite, one of the greatest legends in motoring might never have existed. Signor Ferruccio Lamborghini didn't like Enzo Ferrari, and to spite him, he set about making a better car. Now, most people thought he was being a bit of a ninny, but when he came up with the MUIRA, they didn't anymore. Now, there'd been mid-engined racing cars before, but this little baby was a first. This was a mid-engined road car. And what an engine. 3.9 litres, V12, a lot of carburetors. 380 horsepower. Now, all that equates to a top speed of 180 miles an hour if you could keep the front wheels on the ground, and 0 to 60 in 5 seconds in the 1960s. Now, in those days, you could use that sort of power. Driving the MUIRA today is evocative, nostalgic. Back then, it must have been just damn good fun. But then came the 70s, complete with loon pants and glam rock, and, to complement them perfectly, the Lamborghini Countach. Now remember, in 1971, everyone was driving around in Mark II Cortinas. This was as big a leap forward as the Harrier jump jet was from the horse. Throughout its long 19-year life, the Countach kept pace with technological change, evolving from this, the 4-litre LP400, into this, the Anniversary, complete with a 5.2-litre 48-valve V12 and looks that could turn the head of even the most dedicated motoring dunderhead. Now, this is not the nastiest car I've ever driven, because obviously I've been in a Nissan Micra. But it's damn close. It's a bit like driving a washing machine, only the visibility is worse. You can forget all about that letterbox they dare to call a rear window, because you can't see anything out of that. There's no rear three-quarter vision, and the door mirrors wobble like hell. I'm not joking, Daryl Hannah could be sunbathing topless on the boot, and I wouldn't have a clue. But what, I hear you ask, is it like to drive? Well, the answer comes in 2 parts, because on the open road, it's impossible, and around town, it's even more impossible. The problem seems to be that the pipe cleaners which stick out of my torso masquerading as arms and legs are simply not up to the job of turning the steering wheel, or just as importantly, pushing the clutch pedal down. It was, however, not designed as a town car. The boot isn't even big enough for a packet of biscuits. It was designed to go fast, and it does that rather well. So well, in fact, that if you push the loud pedal all the way to the floor, it scares you to death.
I was born, 6-gun in my hand. That's why they call me bad company, and I won't deny. Bad company, till the day I die.
Then there's the style, which, let's face it, is more Paul Gascoigne than Edward Fox. If this was food, it'd be an ice cream sundae with a sparkler stuck in the top. If it was music, it'd be rock and roll. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm glad the Countach was made. I'm glad the world is still capable of such an outrage. I'm also glad I don't own one, but most of all, I'm glad it's now been consigned to the history books. This is why. It's called the Diablo, and it's the fastest car in the world. In Italy, it's been officially clocked at 206 miles an hour. But don't, for one moment, think I'm going to try that here. What I am going to do is demonstrate just how fast the Diablo accelerates. This is the Castle Combe racetrack in Wiltshire. That is a Golf GTI. And this is the difference between a fast car and a Lamborghini. Well, that was something else. But how did it do it? Well, the Golf's got a 1.8-litre four-cylinder engine. This has a 5.7-litre V12. The Golf develops 112 horsepower. This develops nearly 500. The Golf goes from 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds. This does it in 4. But then again, the Golf does 30 mpg, and this doesn't. But never mind the performance. The best bit is that, unlike the Countach, I can actually fit inside. I can also operate the controls, and most important of all, I can see out, which is useful when you're going quickly. The question is, could you really push this thing to its limits? And would every 19-year-old male with a moustache that looks like an earwig kindly stop nodding now, please, because my bet is you couldn't. It doesn't matter, though, because what we have here is nothing more than a toy. It's just that at £157,000, it's a few rungs further up the ladder from a train set.
This is a man's world. This is a man's world. But it would be nothing without a woman.
Both drivers in this high-speed head-on smash walked away from their cars with just bruises. It was the world's first accident where both vehicles were fitted with airbags. Airbags are pillows which inflate with harmless nitrogen gas in the event of a smash, and they cushion people's heads and faces from parts of the car's interior. They supplement seat belts which hold the torso in place but allow the head to move forward in serious collisions. Activation of the airbag only happens when deceleration sensors detect a G-force which is equivalent to that produced by a frontal collision. The airbag then inflates from the center of the steering wheel. The whole process is over in just microseconds, and the airbag deflates as it absorbs the energy from the driver's head. Without airbags, the face can hit the steering wheel, which, though it looks soft, can actually do a great deal of harm. American road safety research organizations estimate that deaths and serious injuries would be reduced by 1/3 if all cars had airbags fitted. In fact, in America, nearly half of all new cars are already available with airbags as standard or optional equipment. By 1995, legislation will make them compulsory there. In Japan, manufacturers are being actively encouraged to fit airbags, and it's only in Europe we seem to be dragging our feet. On the UK market, just Honda, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo and BMW offer airbags either as an option or as standard equipment. Why is it taking so long for them to arrive there? Well, one reason might be cost. Mercedes-Benz would charge you £1,400 for an airbag as an option. The introduction of airbags in the States came only after long and bitter opposition from the car manufacturers, who in the 70s were reported to have done a secret deal with the US government to prevent compulsory fitment. But attitudes have changed. Manufacturers no longer see safety as a costly inconvenience, but they're finding it a positive marketing tool to promote their cars.
Thanks to Chrysler airbag, I still have my little girl.
Only Chrysler puts a driver's side airbag in every car we build in America.
In Europe, cheaper systems are under development to overcome the cost problem. Now, this is the Euro bag. You'll see it's only 35 litres. It's much smaller than the 70 litres of an American typical system. And it's all contained in the centre of the steering wheel. Even though it's smaller, the manufacturers claim it's just as effective as the larger bag if you're wearing your seat belt. Now, if we are going to hit things on the inside of cars, why not make them softer? Well, the government's Transport and Road Research Laboratory has been droning on for years about making the inside of cars softer. A soft steering wheel, like this one fitted by Rover, would help to reduce facial injuries and would cost under £50. But just how effective would it be?
There's a limit to how far one can go with that without making them sore by rubber, in which case not much use for steering a car then, are they? But there are certain things that could be done. Unfortunately, we can't get enough that way. We can't get enough energy absorbance. We really have to be going for something different. And airbags would seem at this stage to be one of the answers.
The industry has argued that airbags are ineffective inside impacts. As ineffective perhaps as the doors they've been fitting to most of our cars. But 60% of all impacts are frontal anyway, and side impact airbags are being developed to deal with situations like this. The chances of an accidental airbag inflation are less than 1 in a million, and you can still control the car even then. Despite all the research, the evidence and the experience of airbags in America and other places, our own Department of Transport remains unconvinced about the efficiency of airbags. We are still investigating the matter, they told us. Others think the courts should be taking a lead. Douglas Stewart, you're a legal advisor to the Spinal Injuries Association. Now, the association is currently looking for wheelchair victims of car accidents. Why?
Well, it's not just wheelchair victims either. They're looking for people in general who have suffered as a result of an accident in which an airbag would have made a difference, because they know from the statistics that have been gathered here and in America that airbags really work and can prevent death, brain damage and spinal injury.
Now, if you find such people, will you be bringing actions in the British courts?
Yes, there's every reason to believe that there could be cases run in the British courts for crashworthiness, for the failure of manufacturers to acknowledge that the state of the art around the world is sufficient that vehicles here should be fitted.